Learning Target 5. This one has a lot of help on my slopes video. In fact, I strongly suggest watching the slopes video that I made a week or two ago to help you if you're struggling with any of the content from this chapter. Okay, let's get started. So, we're going to graph some lines. To graph a line, you want to look at the things that we know about the form. So in this one, it says y equals, most of them are going to be in y equals mx plus b form, okay? Where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. And if it's in this form, they're super easy to graph. If they're not in this form, you have a few choices. You could change it to be in this form, which is what we learned in an earlier learning target 4, or you can take it and you can use some special tricks that I'm going to show you. This one technically is in y equals mx plus b form, only we don't have a plus or a minus at the end. So if we needed to say, what is this at the end? There's nothing there. In math, nothing is a 0. Okay, so think of it as having a slope intercept or a y-intercept of 0. So I've got a slope of -5 and a y-intercept of 0. I'm always going to start at my y-intercept. So I'm going to find on the y-axis, I'm going to find 0. There it is. Okay, then from that point that I just made, I'm going to count my slope. Now slope is always rise over run. Rise can be positive, meaning the rise is actually going up like you'd think of rise to do, or rise could be negative. And if rise is negative, it means I'm going down. The run, however, is always going to the right, okay? In this case, I don't have a top and a bottom number, but how can I change a whole number to be a fraction? That's right, we put it over 1. Now I have a rise of -5 and a run of 1. Well, I'm saying a rise of -5. I really am setting, right? I'm going down. So I'm going down 5 over 1. Down 5, count it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over 1. And put another point. I can keep going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if my graph is big enough. Mine isn't. And draw that line. I suggest making 3 points, but if you can only fit 2, you can still draw a line with 2 points. And I'm done. This one, I don't have any form showing. I'm just told your y-intercept is 4 and your slope is -2/3. That's all I need to know. I'm going to start at my y-intercept. Remember, the y-intercept is where the line runs into the y-axis. So I'm going to start on this line of y here, and I'm going to go to 4. 4 is positive. 1, 2, 3, 4 is right here, okay? And I'm going to start at my 4, and I'm going to go down 2 over 3 because my rise says -2 and my run says 3. So I'm going down 2 over 3. Down 2, 1, 2 over 3. 1, 2, 3. Can do it again. Down 2 over 3. Okay, and connect those with a line. The next one again shows you y equals mx plus b form, where we know the b is our y-intercept and the m is our slope. I always start at my y-intercept, -4. And then I'm going to take my slope, 1 over 2. My rise is 1. My run is 2. So up 1 over 2. Up 1 over 2. Up 1 over 2. Draw a line. In the last example, here's one that isn't in y equals mx plus b form. Now, I could actually change this to make it y equals mx plus b, and for this particular example, it would turn out just fine. But in another learning target previously, we found the x and the y intercepts when it's written in this form, which is standard form. So what we did is if we see that it's in standard form, we can solve for y and we can solve for x when the other term is 0. So if I'm looking at this and I say, let's pretend x is 0, then I'm ignoring this term and I'm saying -5y equals 30. But what if I said y is 0? Then I'd have 10x is equal to 30. So I can solve for each of those. So basically what I was just doing was I was plugging in 0 for those terms, because we know when we're on an axis, when we're on the x-axis, or when we're on the y-axis, that means one of the numbers is 0. So when I'm on the y-axis, the x is always 0. When I'm on the x-axis, the y is always 0. So we can just ignore those terms and go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and solve these. Now I have some simple ones here, and on your test, I chose to do simple ones as well. You're welcome. So I'm going to divide by -5, and I get y equals -6. Okay, so I can graph that. I can start on the y and go down to -6. Put a point there. That is my y-intercept. Then I'm going to go ahead and graph the x. Divide by 10, divide by 10, and x equals 3. Okay, so if x equals 3, I'm going to go over to the 3 on the x-axis, and those are my 2 points. From there, I can connect my 2 points, and that's the graph of the line. The other option I told you is that you could actually change this to y equals mx plus b form, and if you did that, you would end up getting the same answer. All right, see you in the next learning target.